What's up, fellas? I'm back at it again, talking about the British Puzzle Man. Around 2 months ago, I made a video titled Professor Layton the Curious Village is a masterpiece, but after playing the third entry in the series, Professor Layton the Unwound Future, that's kind of a lie at this point. This game, Professor Layton the Unwound Future, is 1,000 times better than Professor Layton the Curious... The joke wasn't funny the first time. I'm not reading the script again. You can't make me! For real though, after playing the Diabolical box and the Unwound Future, I can confidently say they're both much better than the Curious Village. The Curious Village set the foundations of the Professor Layton series, and it's an amazing starter. However, that's not to say it's flawless. I didn't touch on it too much in my previous video essay, but some of the twists at the end weren't that well paced, and while it's an awesome ending in my opinion, it just felt like stuff was being thrown at you left and right from the sky within the last hour and a half. There is foreshadowing like in any good tease, but it just didn't make any sense to me whenever I first played. I didn't think anything of those teasing lines, I was just confused, which is the point of a tease, but still. In other games, when they tease me, usually I'll think upon it and guess what could happen in the story, get it wrong, and be much more surprised than I would have been already. The Curious Village didn't really have that though. I was just stumped on a couple of things until Best Friends came at me in the last hour explaining what everything meant. It would have been nice to gradually understand the situation more and more with Layton, but what can you do? I may have just butchered the ending of the first game, but don't get me wrong, I still absolutely adore Professor Layton the Curious Village. It's a wonderful start to a series I'm starting to love very much, but it's not flawless. Not every game you or I play is going to be the magnum opus of its series or genre, but it's still a wonderful experience nonetheless. Anyway, let's talk about how Professor Layton the Unwound Future is easily the best game in the series I'll ever play. As I'm writing this might not be as long or as in-depth as my Curious Village video, however I do want to touch on some things that the Unwound Future does much better than the Curious Village. For starters, I want to talk about the absolute bangers that this game has. The Curious Village has a lot of good songs that I still enjoy, but the Unwound Future has many more that put the Curious Village to shame. Spoilers, by the way, for my favorite songs, but I absolutely love the Unwound Future, or Lost Future in Europe. It only plays a couple of times at the very end of the game, but goddamn, it really sets the mood for everything happening. Clive screaming at his own demise, Layton bringing Claire back to the giant fucking weapon, Claire actually saving Clive. Just in barely 5 minutes or so of cutscenes, I fell in love with this track. I said in the last video I'm a huge simp for violins, but come on, you can't listen to this and not feel emotion and wanting to give power to these characters saving the city. Next up is Huge Weapon, which to me has always been Clive's theme. The reason it's called Huge Weapon is because editor's note, fellas, woo. I don't actually know if it's called Huge Weapon, because I'm seeing a handful of videos online calling it the Mobile Fortress. But then again, there are also a handful calling it Huge Weapon, so pick your poison. Both are really good names for a really good song. Back to your regularly scheduled bullshit. But also, this thing to me is just so overpowering and sinister. Clive tricked the professor and, especially the player, everything was falling into place for his master plan to exact revenge on the Prime Minister for reasons, and he almost gets away with it. Honestly, this track is just such a banger. I really enjoyed it when it played. I intentionally read the dialogue slowly so I can listen to this thing more. And finally, my absolute favorite track in the game is Time Travel. This is the credits scene for the Unwound Future, and oh boy, fellas. There's so much emotion behind the song, I can't even describe how emotional I got when I saw Layton cry at Claire leaving for good. This confident foot off the brakes professor showing sadness and frustration after seeing him express seriousness and being happy for over 2 other games. It just really impacted the scene. Claire saying to be strong to the scene cutting to Layton crying seconds afterward is just so emotional. I honestly just felt sad when I watched all of the ending because how everyone was affected. It wasn't a happy ending like the Curious Village, it wasn't a bittersweet one like the Diabolical box. This one just made me sad. I am sad. It's still a really good game though, even if you cry. The piano keys in the beginning followed by the acoustic was just sweet, and the sax rolled in with the tone and I teared up. And the violins roll in with a drum build-up and just mwah. I almost cried in the middle of class. You get a gold star, level 5, good job. I love this song. There are many more bangers here, but those are just a few that I really enjoyed. What does a review normally jump to after talking about the music? That's right, the gameplay! No, you dingus, it's the art style. The art style in this game is wonderful and almost identical to the first and second game with its own personality. Almost all environments have an industrial steampunk vibe to it, and the new character designs are awesome. The cutscenes... oh my god, the cutscenes. The cutscenes are abundant in this game. There's 30 plus minutes of them while the first game could barely do 10. The voice acting in these scenes are wonderful, especially with new characters like Claire and Clive. The voice actors and actresses really bring these guys to life, old and new characters. The animations are full of so much detail and color, and I really just love it. The art style is still awesome, just like the first game. The gameplay. It's a DS visual novel, what else do you want me to say? It's more or less the same thing compared to the Curious Village, but has a subway system, which is really just menuing, and minigames, which we did see in the Diabolical box, but they're different. And also has said minigames that I can't be bothered to figure out the answers to, so I left them to rot in the void. Fuck you, you dumbass bird. I've been talking about how Unwound Future is the perfect sequel, but some of, if not the main reasons, is now my favorite piece of Layton media, so far at least, as I just bought the movie and I have yet to play the 3DS games, is the story. The story here is just great, it's really awesome, it perfects every problem I had with the first game, from twists to pacing to making me almost cry, it does it all. I actually grew attached to the main cast, which the first game didn't really have for me. I really just enjoyed Layton, Luke, Flora, Chelmy, and Don Paolo. Everybody else could take a hike. Here, I love everybody. Their vibrant personalities and funny and endearing dialogue, it's just awesome. Except for the Prime Minister, that guy can go fuck an egg. As for twists, let's take a look at a couple of them. One of the first which actually blew me away and left me stunned was Don Paolo's return. Context. When the Gamer Squad reaches future Layton's evil base, Layton beats it for a few minutes, leaving a note on Flora's back saying he'd be back. And when he does actually come back, Clive gives a sinister stare at him, almost like that isn't the real professor. What I thought was that evil future Layton had taken his place, and that's why Clive was so pissed off at him. Maybe Clive knew he wasn't actually Layton, but instead his evil future counterpart. However, about 20 minutes later, I hate you bridge puzzles so much, Layton and fellows are trapped. But it's revealed that Layton was secretly Don Paolo all along. Or at least while they were in the tower. I was so surprised to see Don Paolo's hair drip off to the sides of Layton's head. I was not expecting that. Remember my examples earlier, making the player think and tricking them for a greater surprise? That's how you do a twist and tease correctly. Another twist, and a rather sad but simple one at that, was that Celeste, quote-unquote, wasn't actually Claire's sister. She was simply Claire the whole time. Context again. Claire was Layton's former girlfriend, and she worked with Dimitri Allen and Bill Hawks. Hawks is the current Prime Minister that I wish to stab many times. And they had a lot of time travel experiments. One day, Hawks said, "You know what? Let's begin finalizing and testing our machine," and Dimitri was very much against testing. If your co-worker is against testing a damn time machine, a machine capable of ripping apart any and all matter throughout any period of time in the whole universe, or just straight up exploding in the process, then personally speaking, I think it'd be a good idea and wait until everyone is ready to test it. Not to this guy! He goes through with the testing without Dimitri using Claire as a test subject, and you can only guess where this goes. Claire fucking dies, and Hawk survives wounded, and Dimitri is rightfully distraught at Claire's death. I would go into more detail on how Dimitri and Clive's motivations are very understanding and similar really, but we don't have time for that. I only have a page and a half left to read. But what really happens is that Claire doesn't die immediately. She was sent 10 years into the future, aka right when Unwound Future takes place. She couldn't tell Layton who she really was because, well, what would you do if your dead partner suddenly came back from the dead after being gone for so long? Layton and everybody needed to stop Clive from his monstrous machine of a weapon. If Layton started worrying for Claire on top of stopping Clive, things would fall apart really fast. When Claire leaves Layton for good in the cutscene right before the credits roll, she's sent back to the explosion the moment she dies. This twist was not as overthinking as the Don Paolo reveal for me, but this twist, with context, is just fucking sad, man. I really enjoyed it, no doubt, and it wasn't hinted all that much, but again, I'm a sad boy, I still really enjoyed it. Alright, we've talked about music, art, gameplay, story, twists. I have no idea what else to touch on that the Unwound Future did crazy better than the first game.
Every puzzle has an answer.
Oh yeah, the puzzles! They suck! I know this is a comparison/review video saying that the Unwound Future is better, but the puzzles were not as good as the Curious Village in my opinion. You're the one who chooses what puzzles you want to do, and you're more than welcome to skip bad puzzles, but you kinda need a good amount done to complete the story, the final puzzle barrier being 80 completed. So you can't exactly skip over a bad puzzle and look for one you'd actually enjoy, and that barely happened for me. The only ones I found enjoyable were the ones where you moved things around and interacted with them, but the majority of the puzzles I had were simply how many blank questions, or what's the time or date, because hoo-ho, it's a time travel game! 3 or 4 of these were enjoyable and funny, but after a little bit they just kind of fell off, and I would just hope I'd get a puzzle where I actually do something instead of playing a numbers game. That's the only thing I really dislike about this game, is the puzzles were not as fun in my opinion. Around this point I'd touch on the story and give a synopsis of it, but no. I'm just way too lazy and I'm never doing what I did last time again. I'm just gonna link the cutscenes in the description because I'm using them as B-roll anyway, and I'm pretty sure you'd be able to understand it all. And if you really care that much, then maybe you could watch the Let's Play, probably from Karate Chopsticks, because he's one of the only Let's Players that I've seen play any Professor Layton games. Or, better yet, play the games like me! Please! Oh yeah, because my writing is so inconsistent with timing and when I actually write, let's talk about my thoughts on the Diabolical box and the last Specter. Yes, I write so sporadically that I started writing the script the day I beat the Unwound Future, but immediately started playing the 4th game and barely got done talking about the twist. And then I wrote and recorded a 7-page script for the Curious Village in 1 day. Why am I like this? Diabolical box. Layton fights a vampire in a duel and helps out the elderly. The puzzles were more or less the same as the Curious Village, but the sprite work is so much better. Everyone is at a side profile instead of looking dead in your eyes and wanting to go to McDonald's, and honestly that just looks so much better to me. Anyway, I really like this game. Jumping over to the last Specter, it does not fill the shoes of the Unwound Future. I will say though that the puzzles are honestly better, but the story does not live up to it. It's still very enjoyable, but again, Unwound Futures is just better in my opinion. Descole was a really cool bastard though. He was in the game for a whopping 20 minutes, but still, he's just an awesome villain. I really hope that we see more of him after the movie. Might as well talk about the movie. Except not really, because it's on YouTube for free thanks to some lad and you can watch it all yourself in the description below. Back to the Unwound Future for the end. This game is just really good and fun, just like the 1st, 2nd, and 4th games, but the story and music and writing is so much better than them by a long shot. I fell in love with the music, the art, the story, and absolutely everything, and I'm happy I did because this is easily my favorite Professor Layton game. If you've played the first 2 games and you plan to continue to the next, then oh boy, you're in for a treat. But wait, you may be saying, again, what happened to Don Paolo?
Here, this is for you.
What is it?
A letter, of course. Read it at home.
Why don't you just tell me what it says? I'm right here, after all.
In short, this.
To put it simply, Don Paolo got cucked by Layton, and that's why I did everything to get back at him. He's a good guy in the end though, and he really comes in clutch. Always liked the guy. Okay, let's end this already.